Welcome to 2016 Presidential Candidate Interviews. Today I'm interviewing George Miklos. He is running in the American Independent Conservative Party. Hello, Mr. Miklos, and welcome to the interview. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you for doing the interview. Let's get started by getting to know you. I'll ask you some quick icebreaker questions. Describe your family.
Well, I'm married. I've been married for 18 years. I have no children. My wife does have 4 grown children, and I have 3 dogs. And I have a sister and a niece that live in Colorado. Very small family.
Describe your employment, your work experience.
Well, I've been in the security business most of my life. I have worked for smaller security companies, private firms that provide security for celebrities, politicians, athletes when they come to Las Vegas for business or pleasure. I've done a lot of things. I'm an actor also. I lived in Hollywood for a while. I still have an agent in Hollywood, and I do work here and there. And that's what I do. I also have a real estate agent license, and I do have experience as far as leadership goes. And that's pretty much it right now. Acting, real estate, and security work.
What are your hobbies and interests?
Well, I'm not going to call it a hobby, I guess, but I am running for the nation's highest office, so I've been really busy with that. I do play fantasy football on NFL.com. I do like the NFL. I used to play football in college, so that's pretty much it. I don't have a lot of hobbies. I like to read, and I like to play fantasy football online.
Do you have a favorite place to eat out?
No, I love to eat. I mean, if you saw me, I'm probably as far as I know, the second heaviest presidential candidate behind Governor Christie. I like to eat. No, I do like Oriental food. I do like Hungarian food also. And because my family background is Hungarian, and I grew up in a Hungarian household, so I do love to cook.
Okay, favorite fast food joint?
Well, if I have to pick a fast food joint, well, I like In-N-Out Burger occasionally. I'm trying to cut back on the fast food
Okay.
stuff, that's for sure.
Favorite junk food?
Nachos, Doritos, the nacho flavored. I'm addicted to those. I love those things.
Just a few more icebreaker questions. Favorite TV shows and movies?
Any movie or TV show that I've worked on, I like. I'm a big horror buff. I like horror movies, scary movies. I like also crime thrillers also.
Okay. Do you have any, I think you just mentioned it earlier, any pets?
Yes, I do have 3 dogs. I have a black Pomeranian. He'll be 3 years old soon. He weighs 19 pounds. I'm grooming him to play on the defensive line of the Oakland Raiders. I also have a 5-pound, 2.5-year-old Yorkie named Gizmo, and that's what he is. He is a gizmo. He runs around the house like a wind-up toy.
And finally, name a song you would consider maybe a life anthem or a motto or something that represents you.
Well, I have this list that I use for every morning to keep me motivated, to keep me getting up. And one of the things is how you think is everything. Learn to visualize success and not failure. I mean, you are what you think is a very powerful idea. And I try not to listen to those voices that try to pull me down. And you can't spend all your time trying to win over your critics. You just got to run your own race. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, now on to the issues-based questions. The obvious one, why are you running for president?
Well, as an American, when I went on the FEC website, there was only 4 qualifications. and 90% of us fit that bill. You have to be older than 35 years old. You've had to have been born in the U.S. You had to have lived here the last 14 years of your life, and you cannot be a convicted felon. Very simple. I was very shocked that the qualifications were that. There was one requirement, and that was that you showed proof that you had raised $5,000 or spent $5,000 on a campaign, which I did do that. I did fit the requirement there. I know a lot of the candidates probably did not fulfill that requirement, and I did. And I figured, why not? This is the perfect election cycle that you see. The fact that the top three Republican conservative candidates are outsiders. You've got Donald Trump, Carly Fiorina, and Ben Carson. None of them have ever held public office ever. And look how they're doing. So I think America is fed up with the definition of a politician. And so I decided, why not jump into the ring? If they can do it, why not?
What abilities do you bring to the office of president?
Well, I was in the military. I have leadership skills. I've also been a big advocate for a flat tax. I understand what it takes. Are there some issues that I have to work on? Sure. But most presidential candidates, if you are elected, and if you are a candidate and you are elected, you surround yourself with people that have an expertise in a particular subject. And that's what my goal will be.
Name a president or two that you have a favorable opinion of who have aspects of their presidency you would want to emulate.
Well, I didn't think about this particular president when I was in my 20s, Ronald Reagan. Didn't really know much about him. I did follow him throughout the years when he was president. But as you get older and you look back, Ronald Reagan, he didn't take anyone's BS. He said it like it was. He was a God-loving man, Christian. He cared about America, and he cared about the people. Another president who I like a lot was, even though we're the same party, FDR. The reason he got elected 4 times was because he was a man of the people. That's for sure. And I think if they had not have put a limit on terms, there are other people out there like Reagan who may have been elected a 3rd time.
Name a president or two that you have a not-so-favorable opinion of who you would not want to emulate.
Well, as a man, he was a top-notch human being. He is a top-notch human being. He's still alive. He's going through some cancer treatment. I did not favor him as a president, Jimmy Carter, but my father was very good friends with him, and I was in college, and I hung around him and his family and his children, and he's a decent man. His one term has not been looked at favorably, but ever since he has left office, he's done wonders. And again, he did not have a great term. There are things that I did not agree with that he did. So, saying that, I did not think he was a great president, but he's a wonderful human being, that's for sure.
Are there any functions of government you would like to decrease or abolish?
Well, I know it's one of the coming questions up and coming. The IRS. That's the only thing the federal government's got left is the IRS, the power over the people there. I think a flat tax would be good. The IRS is too powerful, too corrupt, and it's just not going anywhere for us. I also would like to see Obamacare gone. I would like to see another. In theory, it sounds great that everyone would be able to, every hardworking American could get health insurance. But there's got to be a better plan out there than Obamacare.
Are there any functions of government that don't exist that you think should exist? And is there anything in government that needs to be increased or added to?
Infrastructure I mean, a good example of the infrastructure is Hurricane Katrina. Everybody was hopping on the plane to blame our president at the time, George W. Bush. First of all, it's the state's responsibilities, the citizens of the state. They're the ones who live there. They understand that what the weather problems and what issues could happen. The local governments need to be more in tune with their state. I don't believe that the federal government has to have their hands into everything. You know, the states, if they need help, then they would ask the federal government for help. I think the government needs to stay out of the privacy. The government needs to stay out of that. We're too big. We need to tone down some of the definitely the IRS. Obamacare needs to be eliminated. The IRS needs to be eliminated. There needs to be another way. Infrastructure too. You know, we've got the highways, the post office, airways, railways. Each individual state should be in charge of their individual infrastructures. And if there's an issue that the federal government can help them with, then maybe at that point, would they be able to step in.
Describe your stance on taxation.
Well, like we had just discussed just briefly here, I do believe that the IRS needs to be abolished. There needs to be a flat tax. And I do believe that anybody, you know, we all need to pay taxes. Even the poor need to pay taxes. But if there's a certain income, maybe under the poverty level in this country, that $25,000 to me annually is poverty level. That's $500 a week. You know, maybe anyone that's making that kind of money or less might be able to forego paying taxes at a higher rate. They need to lower it. And that would be a tax plan that would lower taxes for millions of us. Now, again, a flat tax, a lot of people don't like that because it still favors the rich. But the IRS, again, that they have to work on this, and there's got to be something done about it. That's for sure.
Describe your stance on the abortion pro-choice issue.
I don't even know why we're still talking about it 40 years later, Roe versus Wade. I mean, my God. I mean, I'm not a woman, so I don't know. If a woman has health issues and her life is in jeopardy, or maybe there was rape or incest involved, there are certain circumstances where I think abortion is acceptable in certain situations, but that's up to a woman. I mean, again, here I am running as a conservative, but I have kind of a progressive view on abortion. I mean, I don't want unwanted children born, and I do believe every life is sacred, but there are certain instances where there might be a mentally challenged woman who was raped who obviously wouldn't be able to raise a child. There are certain instances. It's a very touchy subject, you know, and I don't understand why we're still discussing it at this point, but that'll be something that we discuss forever, I guess.
Okay. What role should our military play in the world?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
What role should the military play in the world?
Well, in the United States, our military has shrunk over the years. I don't want a massive military to use as an offensive. We need a big military for defense, especially in today's world. You have North Korea, Iran, Iraq, the Middle East. I want to see our military grow. I think they should bring back the draft. I think every young person under the age of 25 should serve a minimum of 2 years in the military. It's just a requirement. It should be. America would be a better place. Today's youth wouldn't be as lost and disoriented if they had a specific opportunity, a couple of years in the military to focus and learn some discipline and understand why the world's the way it is. The military needs to be stronger, not because to go on the defense, but to protect ourselves. We are the laughing stock of the world right now. We won't do anything to help anybody. I mean, that's a double-edged sword. I'm the first one to say I'm selfish. America should stay in their own boundaries and mind their own business. But the rest of the world won't allow it. They won't allow it. So we have to go in and do something. This ISIS stuff has got to stop. And the only way, look at Russia. Putin already went in there already. They're already in there right now. And we're watching them take care of it. Now, on one hand, I'm thinking, okay, let Russia and Putin deal with it, and we'll stay out of it. But they're going to need our help. And if we want, you got all these Syrian refugees now that are 400,000 plus that are coming through. Now, granted, 90% of them are hardworking, misplaced, regular folks who are looking for a better way. But a lot of those people are bad, very bad. And to eliminate that is just by not taking in any of them. And here we are already, in the last couple of days, Syrian refugees are coming to the United States. It's not a good thing. And it's hard for me to say that because my parents were Hungarian immigrants, but the mindset was different a half a century ago. Yesterday's immigrant had the mindset of wanting to come to America and do the right thing. Today's immigrant, they just want the free stuff, the free everything, and just to come over here and cause chaos, and I don't like it. And we need a stronger military to prevent all that from happening.
How would you handle immigration and border security?
I'm all for a wall. Who isn't? Most respectable and hardworking Americans want the wall. I think hardworking legal immigrants that have come to this country want the wall. It's not fair for them who came over here and have gone through the process to become legal immigrants. It's not fair for them to watch 15 million plus illegal immigrants come over here and do whatever they want. I just saw yesterday in California, 500,000 driver's licenses have been issued to illegal immigrants. That's beyond crazy, beyond wrong. It's not right. It's not right. Build the wall, hire 10 to 15,000 more border security, give them the authority to be border patrol. You can't just let these guys go down there, these border patrols protecting us, shooting drug dealers, and then drug dealers turning around and suing America for $10 million. You can't have that. It's wrong. It's wrong.
How do you perceive the issues of race and discrimination in our country? Do we still face challenges?
To answer the last part of the question first, yes, we still face challenges. We will always face challenges when it comes to racism. Now, I'm a white male. Again, people can say what they want. Yeah, I grew up in a great household. My parents were Hungarian immigrants. They gave us the education and the know-how and the abilities to go out and achieve something. But when you see in the last couple, 3 years, the Trayvon Martins and the Michael Browns, I do believe, and again, I may be called a racist for this. I've had my own radio show before. I've been called every name in the book. You got to step off the racism. The black America has got to step off of the word racist. The word racist, the actual definition is an individual or a group of people that believe a particular race is superior to another. I don't feel that way. Most Americans don't feel that way. And black America has got to get off the fact that, the inner cities, they're 90% African American and minorities. I'm sorry, you segregated yourself. They don't want to work. You've got 47 million people on food stamps. 90% of them are African American. I've looked up the numbers. It's sorry to say. Now, are there people out there that are hardworking, that want to go to school, that are going to get off their butt and do something about their lives? You bet there are. But a lot of them, they just want to sit around, feed off the system, and they don't want to work. And that's where that 47 million, when Romney said it 4 years ago, that just sit on their collective butts, and they use the welfare system to make a living. I didn't know you could do that. I thought there was a cutoff point at some point.
What role should the federal government play in healthcare?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, in theory, it would be great for every hardworking American to have some basic form of health insurance. Now, if there was some basic coverage that the federal government could provide, and then maybe as your job got better or your family grew and you needed extra coverage, extra benefits, then you could go out and privatize your own policy. I don't know. I certainly believe that it's been that way since if you go to work, you get your own health insurance. If your job provides you with an insurance policy, that's fine. Again, I'm torn between the government providing basic health insurance for each and every hardworking American. It sounds great in theory, but it's never been able to work, and this Obamacare stuff is not working either. So, that's a question that will probably take more time to delve into and to do research on. But as you can see, nobody's been able to figure out. The Clintons tried it 25 years ago. It didn't work. Obamacare got his passed, but, it's a mess. And again, in theory, it sounds great for everybody to be able to provide for their own insurance, but unfortunately, you have to do it on your own.
You mentioned a little bit on this earlier. What priority would you give repair of infrastructure? What role should the federal government play in maintaining infrastructure?
Well, I think there should be rewards. States should be rewarded. Let's just say our highways are a mess, our bridges are a mess. You've had a couple of bridge collapses over the last few years. I believe the individual states should be responsible for their own highways and roads. And infrastructure with the post office is failing. That's part of the infrastructure. I believe the federal government should, take care of the post office, that's for sure. But individual roads, and state highways, that should be the individual state's responsibility.
Some people think there's a conflict between gathering intelligence to fight terror and upholding personal liberties, privacy, and all that. What do you think is a proper balance between the two, or is there even a conflict?
Well, in today's world, it would be great. We all deserve our privacy. That's why America is America. We're allowed to freely travel and do what we want within boundaries of morality and the law. We should be able to live our lives with no government interference. Unfortunately, it's like the NSA. In today's world, with all the terrorism and all that other stuff, having phone calls or cameras around on traffic lights, cameras, we need it. Unfortunately, we live in a world today where you have to have somebody watching to make sure that we do the right thing. There are a lot of people out there that don't live the way that most of us do and do the wrong thing. And unfortunately, if it weren't for certain cameras outside of banks or fast food joints or stores, there are some crimes that would never be solved without them. And spying on your phone calls, I don't know if the government really uses it to spy on everyday Americans. I think that the technology that is used to spy on Americans supposedly or listening on their conversations are to find the bad people. It's a double-edged sword. We want our freedom and our privacy, but yet, life would be horrible without it. So, I don't know, 50 years ago you didn't have all this technology and life was fine. But, again, in today's world, everybody wants to know what everybody's doing. Social media is the same thing. You don't really have any privacy anymore. Once you open up an account on social media, the world has access to you and you have access to them. So it's a double-edged sword.
The next question is kind of a sensitive topic, but it matters to a lot of voters, so it's just something I try to ask. It's not a litmus test of any sort. What role does faith, religion, spirituality, etc. play in your life, and what type of role would it play for you as president?
I know this country was founded on freedom of speech, freedom of religion. People came over here back, 400 years, 300 years ago to start a new life without fear of retribution for the way they thought or worshipped. I'll tell you one thing. We were just discussing this the other day, and I was watching this on the news. Christianity is disappearing in the United States. Now, I grew up in a Christian household. My mother was a Holocaust survivor. She was Catholic. I went to a Catholic school when I was a kid, and I grew up going to school and Sunday school and reading the Bible. I am not a practicing Christian as an adult, ashamed to say, somewhat, but I still have my beliefs that I've had since I was a child. I certainly will tell you that the friends of my parents as a child, Christian, God-fearing, hard-working people, I learned more from them about living life and hard work, decent, honest, hard-working Americans, immigrants that came over here to this country to live their life and they succeeded. That's who I have. That's who I have as role models. Now, as I've gotten older, Christianity and most people today, they've grown up in a society or household that didn't go to church. Kids today don't know about God because the parents didn't go to church. And who knows, it's just over the last 50 years it's kind of eroded faith in America. It doesn't really exist like it did 50 years ago. I saw a photo of the New York City skyline back in the 50s, Easter time, and the buildings had turned on the lights to emulate a cross in each building. It was a beautiful sight. You have 3 crosses in New York City on a building. You could not do that today, because then you'd have somebody that would be, we're offended by the cross, we're offended by this, everybody's offended by everything. And again, Christianity, it's falling to the wayside. It's a sad, sad thing to see. And again, I'm not a practicing Christian like I should be, but I do believe there's merit in it. And this country was much better run. People were raised better. It's just a whole different, they call it progress. I call it regress. We're regressing as a country in every facet, family life, church going. It's amazing to me what's going on.
Next question. Be a forecaster of sorts. Predict maybe 1 or 2 things facing our nation in the future, problems facing our nation in the future that very few people are talking about. What would you do to prepare people for these?
Well, we hear sometimes about the one world government. My wife discusses that a lot, that you don't hear a lot. I will tell you, one world government, I'm not so opposed to a one world government as long as it's us, America. But I do believe that they've been talking about that forever, though. So anything else that we're not really talking about right now, I can't really think of anything right now that America as a whole is not discussing that might be a problem down the road. I do believe these Syrian refugees coming to America, that's going to be a big problem. I mean, in 6 months, you're going to see a bunch of Syrian refugees here in Las Vegas. They're already coming here. They're going to be driving your cabs and running convenience stores in the next 6 months to a year. And I don't care what people say, that's a racist comment. It's a true comment. That's our biggest issue is the terrorism and again, the New World Order is something that has come up a lot recently, but nobody really focuses on it because nobody really believes that there's going to be a one world government. Although in Europe, they're already gone to one currency, and it's not doing very well either over there. So, but that's it on that.
Okay. Next one. Everybody has things they're good at and things they're not so good at. What are some of the things you're not so good at? Maybe your weaknesses, some would say. What are they, and what would you do to compensate for them? Well, one issue for me is I'm not very good at saving money personally. And if
I was running the country, I would definitely surround myself with financial people that have the education and the know-how on how to save money, where to cut, where to make budget cuts. Another weakness would be I don't have a lot of patience. When I hear something idiotic, I get really, really upset or angry. That I would have to work on. I do believe that a great leader surrounds himself with great people, and that's what makes him a great leader, because he knows his faults, he knows his weaknesses, and he makes up for it by surrounding himself with the people that know how to do it.
Are there any other issues you would like to discuss?
No. At this point, we've covered everything that I want to cover. I'm sure once I hang up, there might be a couple more that I think of later, but at this point, everything is good. I've pretty much got my point across to you somewhat. I mean, we could always talk for another hour, but at this point, we've pretty much got everything out that I wanted to discuss.
All right, time for some closing remarks. In 2 minutes or less, tell us why we should vote for you.
I'm an American. I served in the military. I was raised here. I understand the problems of the common person. I'm not a politician, and I think that's what we need right now, someone who is not a politician. I like politics. I've been involved in politics. I have an active interest in it. And I think this country needs to be run by a businessman, someone who knows business, someone who's going to be a straight shooter and tell it like it is, and not be afraid of offending someone over it. You know, Putin, he doesn't care what people think. I mean, I'm not using him to emulate him as a hero or anything, but he's very strong-willed. He's not afraid of anything, and that's who we need in the White House now, someone who's not afraid of offending someone for a particular subject or anything. It's just the way it is. We need someone strong-willed, and we haven't had that in the last 7 years. And it always seems to me that the left, they're always wanting to appease everybody and to make everybody. You can't do that. It's impossible. And we need somebody conservative and strong with values who's not afraid. And that is me.
Okay, thank you for participating in the interview. Thank you to my listeners for listening. Be sure to check back in the future for more candidate interviews. Just have a good day, and remember to keep informed and keep involved. Thanks again, Mr. Miklos.